Welcome back to part 2 of our swivel pin housing overhaul video series. The first thing we're going to have to do is get the wheel off the ground so we can check it. Using a suitable jack and axle stands, which are advisable in most cases, we're going to primarily check the lift on the swivel pins, so you want to be able to get a bar underneath the tyre like so. Get yourself a willing assistant to put their foot on the brake and hold it. This will isolate any play that's in the wheel bearing so we can then just check the swivel pin, and then it's a matter of putting the bar in and lifting it up such. And if there's any play present, this is what you'll feel and hear. You can also use your hands. Not advisable this way, it's better top to bottom. The general telltale sign is to have oil splattered all round the wheel. This is usually the first time you know your seal is actually blown, which indicates a bigger problem. It's always advisable to have the vehicle on level ground, have it chocked, and have axle stands underneath where you're working. Yes, I know sometimes I don't actually use an axle stand depending on job. Right, anyway, back to the job. You can see the play that's in this one. The bearing has gone at the top. So I'm pulling this one right out, getting it on the workshop bench and then stripping it down. The client actually required just having the whole housing swapped over in one go, so this is exactly what I'm going to do with this. Put it all back in one go. In these tutorials what we're going to have is the whole assembly on the bench so we can see what we're doing, because it's almost impossible underneath the vehicle to show you. If you're not used to fixing HGVs and using and lifting heavy equipment, you might want an assistance to lift this hub and housing out. If not, strip it down. In the first instance, depending on what side you're working on, you want to be removing the drag link and the track rod. Easy to do that, there's a tutorial on my channel about this. You need to take the brake caliper off completely. There are two bolts and the heads are like this, which means you need a bi-hexagonal socket, and I've used a deep extension and a long bar with a ratchet on it. It might take some force to actually move the bolts first of all, and they are thread locked in, so keep that in mind. Without having to undo the piping, you can undo the two bolts at the top to take the bracket off. Now these are on the top pin, as you can see here to the left where the ABS sensor is. Once the bolts are out, you can then remove the top pin and you'll find that all the oil will come out from the seal, so make sure that you've got a container to catch it. If the whole assembly comes off, then you'll be wanting to refit the bolts temporarily. Okay, so here are the brake caliper bolts here. There's two of them on the bracket. It's optional whether you take the pads out of the calipers or not. In this case I haven't done, and this I can actually slip back on if I'm using the same disc quite easily. Anyway, this wants to go out of the way and I've put it on the radius arm. Secure it with a cable tie if you need to. If you've got an ABS sensor, disconnect that, otherwise we are now ready to undo the bolts that hold the housing onto the flange. You will need a bi-hexagonal ring spanner or socket to undo these, and there are 7 bolts in total. Okay, so I'm pulling the whole lot off in one go with the half shaft. We can then get it on the bench in the workshop, strip it down and overhaul it properly.